Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Amsterdam. It's a story that spans 800 years, and it's all about rebellion, genius engineering, and constant reinvention. And it all starts with a simple, kind of crooked question. You look at any picture of Amsterdam, and you see it right away. The houses, they don't seem to stand up straight. They lean and tilt and kind of prop each other up. So what is going on? Is it just bad building? An earthquake, maybe? Nope. The real answer is so much more interesting, and it's the key to understanding this entire. That's right, the crooked houses aren't a mistake. They're a clue. A clue that this whole city is basically an 800-year-old engineering project built on a swamp. Amsterdam, by all rights, probably shouldn't even be here. It's a city built on mud, a testament to centuries of defying nature itself. So to really get Amsterdam, you have to start with the ground it's built on, or, the lack of it. This entire area is just a wet, squishy marshland where the land and the sea are pretty much in a constant fight. The whole story is right there in the name. Around 1270, some seriously brave settlers built a dam on the river Amstel. Amstel Dam, get it? This wasn't just some wall. This was their first big move, their declaration that they were going to tame the water and carve out a home here no matter what. So how do you build a city on a swamp? Well, you don't. You build through it. To put up just one building, the massive royal palace, they had to drive 13,659 wooden poles, basically tree trunks, deep into the muck until they hit solid sand. Just think about that. Every old building you see is standing on top of a hidden forest of stilts. It's an incredible feat of pure willpower. But the people here didn't just fight against water. Pretty soon, that same rebellious, can-do spirit turned towards the big human powers at the time. See, they weren't just trying to survive. They were aiming to win. And they started punching way above their weight class. First, they got a toll-free trade deal that brought merchants flooding in. Then they took on the biggest trade group of the era, the Hanseatic League, not by fighting, but by just building better ships. And all of this led to the ultimate act of defiance, telling the most powerful ruler in Europe, King Philip II of Spain, yeah, thanks, but you're not our king anymore. And just so you get how gutsy that was, you need to understand the Hanseatic League. This wasn't just some business association. It was a medieval superpower. A cartel that basically ran all of trade in Northern Europe for hundreds of years. For this little upstart city to even think about challenging them was absolutely insane. So what finally tipped them into an all-out war with the Spanish Empire? Well, it was the classic combo, money and religion. The Dutch were becoming Protestant, and King Philip, who was a super devout Catholic, wasn't having it. He sent in the Inquisition. Add in some ridiculously high taxes to pay for his wars, and you've got yourself a recipe for an 80-year-long fight for their very existence. After they won their independence, the 17th century kicked off, and it became Amsterdam's golden age. But all that success created a massive new problem. And in classic Amsterdam style, the solution was absolutely revolutionary. With the new Dutch Republic booming, everybody wanted a piece of the action. Merchants, artists, thinkers, and especially refugees fleeing the Spanish-controlled South, they all poured into the capital. The city's population literally doubled in no time, and it was just full. A total housing crisis. So the city planners had this giant puzzle on their hands. They had to expand, fast. But here's the catch. Every merchant, the people with the money, wanted their house to be right on a canal. The canals are the city's highways. It's lifeblood for commerce. So how on earth do you give everybody a waterfront property? Their solution was just breathtakingly ambitious, the Canal Ring Project. First, they did what they do best. They made new lands by draining the swamp around the city. Then they dug 3 huge new canals in these perfect concentric arcs. And finally, they sliced up all that brand new real estate into neat little plots. Okay, but that still doesn't explain why the houses are so skinny. Well, the answer wasn't about engineering, it was about taxes. The city decided to tax property based on how wide it was along the canal. So, what did every smart merchant do? They built their houses as narrow as possible and as deep as they could. A simple tax rule literally shaped the look of an entire city. Of course, this created a new problem. If your house is super narrow, your staircase is going to be more like a ladder. So how do you get your bed or your fancy new cabinet upstairs? Simple. You just look up. See, almost every single one of these old houses has a big beam with a hook sticking out of the top. They just hoist everything up the outside of the building and swing it in through the windows. It's that pragmatic, problem-solving spirit in action. Now, the money for all of this came from two world-changing inventions, the Dutch East and West India Companies. These were, and this is no exaggeration, the world's first multinational corporations. They were the first to sell stock to the public. The VOC cornered the spice trade in Asia, while the WIC focused on the Americas, and even founded a little trading post you might have heard of called New Amsterdam. But we have to be honest here. This wealth came at a horrific cost. The WIC was a major player in the transatlantic slave trade, a brutal truth that casts a very dark shadow over the whole Golden Age. And life in this incredible city wasn't always so golden. Those beautiful canals that were the highways for trade, they were also the city's sewers. As one person wrote at the time, Amsterdam was a beautiful maiden with a horrible breath. The smell, especially in the summer, must have been just unbelievable. Well, the Golden Age couldn't last forever, and the 20th century brought Amsterdam its darkest moments. But it was out of that trauma that the modern, famously liberal identity of the city was forged by a whole new generation of rebels. During World War II, the Nazis occupied the city. For Amsterdam's huge and long-established Jewish community, it was a complete catastrophe. The numbers are just chilling. 78% were murdered. It was a complete betrayal of the city's history of tolerance and a trauma that scarred the soul of the entire nation. So, in the 1960s, the generation that grew up in the shadow of that war looked around at the establishment, the politicians, the authorities, and they felt they had failed, that they had collaborated. And their response was a massive rebellion against everything. They rejected authority, they rejected tradition, and they created this powerful anti-establishment counterculture that really defines the image of Amsterdam to the rest of the world today. So when you look at Amsterdam today, you can see all these threads from its past. The fight against the water, the fight against kings, the fight to come to terms with its own history. It's all woven right into the city's DNA. The city really is a collection of paradoxes, isn't it? It's defined by its endless battle with water. It's a place of hard-nosed, pragmatic business, but also of fierce, idealistic rebellion. Its tradition of tolerance is one of its proudest achievements, but it's a tradition that has been tested and tragically broken. And all of that history is right there as it faces today's challenges of sustainability and just being a livable city. For 800 years, the story of Amsterdam has been about looking at a problem, whether it's a swamp, a tax code, or a housing crisis, and turning it into an opportunity, a defining feature. As it looks to the future, to challenges like rising sea levels and social change, you have to wonder, what will it build next?